Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Not that anyone's here, and that's fine, but this is the last live stream of January. I am going to continue these into February, and I did take last week off. I can't remember why. I think I just wanted a week off because I don't want to do these every weekend. Sometimes I do want to, cook a dinner and sit in front of the television and watch whatever it is that I want to watch at the moment. But I'm back tonight, and this is the last one we're going to do for Help Wanted New Devil for the foreseeable future. I don't know if we'll come back to it in April or later in the year, but for the time being, this is the last time I'll do a live stream for this book, which is exciting. A lot has happened since the last live stream. Primarily, I remembered that I function better when I have a very tight deadline. And there are a variety of reasons for that, which we will not talk about tonight. But it is not me procrastinating, it is me being able to focus better with the looming deadline hanging over me. This is how much I have left to edit. That's not a lot. There are a couple notes on the back. I have to basically edit Act 3. I think that my editor needs this on Tuesday. I'm not entirely sure what time yet. I would assume midnight would be, my personal deadline. But that gives me a little more time tonight and tomorrow night to work on this, which I will definitely take advantage of. And I will probably continue working after this. But I'll say this, Act 2 was probably the tightest act. A lot of that content was pulled from other versions of this draft because it was introducing two characters, one of whom I've been playing with for, since 2004, and the other who was sort of there in 2004 but got pulled in from side character to main character about 5 or 6 years ago, and now is firmly in place as one of the main three characters that we're talking to and hearing from in the narrative. So working through that content was easier. There are still a couple plot holes, I think, but I'm going to let my editor at this point come back and say, I need to see this. You need to put this in. It would have been great to see this kind of element of the story here. What I discovered as I was editing Act 2 earlier, sort of at the midway point of the act, was that there was a missing chapter. There was Joan, who is the first hired devil, comes in for an interview. We get a few chapters of talking to her and getting to know her and hating her. Just, you're going to hate her. That's the point. You're going to hate her. And then she comes to hell for an interview, and she and Death have some interaction, and then it jumps to she's working, and Christina, the previous devil, is ready to retire, and we're having an event. And I realized we need something between there. There's a couple elements that need to be addressed. Death relying on other people to make decisions for him. Death recognizing that Joan's ancestor, who is sitting on the search committee, has manipulated a situation, but he doesn't really care all that much to do anything about it. Like, it's what's done is done. We got to move on. His needs outweigh his desire to bicker with Iris, this ancestor of Joan. But he has to recognize it, because if he doesn't recognize it here at this point, when we get to his mirror moment towards the end of Act 2, which is when he looks in the mirror and is like, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck am I letting happen? Then it doesn't really work very well. You're sort of taken aback by his realizations that he got played, that he is not as in control as he should be, and that he actually should be in control, and his lack of interest and lack of effort has caused the drain to happen for the length of time that it did. So there's a lot of little things going on that need to happen at that point in the story, and everybody has to be angry with each other because they're done. They're done. They've had a year to find this new devil, and they've now exhausted somebody. But you're going to read that when you read the book, because the book's going to be so much freaking fun. So anyway, this chapter has to be written, and I started writing it today, and when I show it to you, you can see there's a timer up now here's a timer. That is up because that is what you're going to see. I don't want you to see the chapter as I'm writing it, not because I don't like to share my writing, but because it's got spoilers in it. And I don't want to spoil things for readers. And if I finish writing this in the hour that we're on this live stream, I'm going to go into act 3, which is where everything gets resolved. And you don't want to be in act 3 and reading along with me. So tonight we're just going to do the timer. I found this little timer online, and we're gonna work from there. So I'm gonna set the a minute timer. I'm gonna start that in a moment, mute myself, and then I'm gonna work. And after 10 minutes, I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about what I wrote in the very general terms. If you come in and you leave a comment, great. I will, of course, block and delete people who leave nonsensical comments because that's my prerogative. It's my live stream. How fun. But we'll talk about what else has gone on this month related to New Devil, relating to the entire Enduring season series of books, and some of those things because I had a couple breakthroughs. And then at the end of the live stream, we'll talk about what's coming up in February and what's coming up for New Devil in the future. So let's start with a 10-minute writing sprint, and I'll see you on the other side. All right. So I got some more written. This is a conversation Death has realized that the person he thought was on the committee to sort of break ties did the opposite of that. She played each side to her plan and then became the tiebreaker, but to only bring on the worst possible candidates, much to everyone's frustration. But because Death has sort of been checked out of this entire process and not really cared, he left it to the committee. Nobody was making decisions. And now we're going to have some fights. So let's talk about in the next few minutes what's going to happen moving forward, um, or what has happened this week. For the past 2 weeks, I've been struggling to work on this. Having this hour has been incredibly helpful, and then having my accountability group has been helpful. But January is tough because I tend to be stuck inside, and being stuck inside means there's nothing but distractions. I am one of those writers who must be out of my house. Doesn't really matter where, I just have to be in better control of distractions. I think this is why I write really well in cafes because I can put in my headphones, block everything out, and focus. Um, there is a possibility I will have a studio or a shared space to work in, that I'll pay rent and will be able to do classes and workshops in and group writing events and maybe even set up a little corner like this to do live streams if I want. The key thing I'm interested in this is because when I'm writing in cafes, I have to leave when they close and I usually buy food because I'm sitting there for hours writing. And also, it's a little bit of a douchebag move to not buy food when you're in a restaurant and you're using their power and their Wi Fi and sitting in one of their spaces. And I'm just not that person who can't buy nothing or can't buy any. I have to buy something. So it becomes expensive to do this 2 or 3 days during the week. If I can get away a third day or when I'm on vacation, maybe 5 days in a row, it's expensive to do the cafes. And if I'm going to spend that money, I'd rather spend it in a space that I can get access to anytime I want. But that being said, that's not happening right now. The block on this book has been partially my need to have a very looming deadline that I need to get better at manipulating to my benefit so that I can work progressively through things. But one of the biggest blocks has been this series. And if you don't know, because I don't think a lot of people do, but this series has been in my head for 20 years in different versions. New Devil, the book I'm working on right now, I wrote originally back in 2004 as my very first NaNoWriMo novel. So there has been a lot of time spent getting to know these characters, getting to know their needs, their wants, their problems, their great their strengths, their weaknesses, everything. Um, and you kind of get attached to these characters. And what I've realized over the years, especially writing the Austen stuff, there's a lot of ease writing the Austen content. Even writing the horror stories is relatively easy because it's well, with the Austen stuff, I have Jane Austen's format to fall back on, and I can trust in her expertise of plot because it's Jane Austen. But this is me. This is all mine. This is an exposure that I am struggling with to feel like I this is where my imposter syndrome, if I had it, would kick in. That as much as my self-assurance and confidence is like pretty high, there are moments where I question myself and question myself as a writer. And this series is it's not that I don't think this series is good. It's that I want this series to be perfect because it is me and it is something I've been thinking of for so long. But in that, I don't want to lose these characters. And I have been working with a strengths coach for the past month. And I had a chat with him for the first like one-on-one chat after like weeks of text and text-based conversations. We had a one-on-one visual chat, and he said a couple things to me that really hit home, and one of the other coaches in this program also hit home with a comment that made me realize how attached I am to these and how protective I am of these characters and this story. And how much I want it to be right. And in every moment that my anxiety lies to me about how this is good or bad, primarily that it is bad, it triggers that emotion. So I had to have a moment where for some time, for there are times where if I'm blocked, it's not solving the block that I need to do, it's recognizing the block, recognizing that this is bothering me, that this is problematic, usually helps me work through. But it also helped that I finally sent my editor 2 chapters to review as a sample review so we could both get a sense of, like, how I write and how she edits, because you do have different editing styles. People like different things when they edit, um, and they say different things, and they have preferences for style. Everybody's a little different, so you wanna see your editor's style when you edit. Is it matching with you as a writer? And I was very encouraged with Samantha's edits, but she said exactly what I needed to hear, which was, "I'm really excited to read more about this." And I thought, "Okay, that's it." And boom, I was writing again and I was editing again. And then what really helped was a snow weekend. And if you don't live in northeast of America, then you might not know we had this massive storm yesterday, and I was stuck in the house all day Saturday and ultimately all day today as we waited for plows to come and clear us out. And then by then there's nothing else to do and the rest of the city was just untravelable. So I just stuck in the house again. And if I put on a show that I know very well and don't have to pay attention to, I can focus. So today, it actually for the past 2 days, it's been, Gordon Ramsay's US version of Kitchen Nightmares because I've watched that show, like, a many times, and I don't need to pay attention. I can take the noise and drown it out and not feel like I'm missing something versus wanting to watch the next Star Trek season that I've finally got Paramount Plus to watch. I wanna focus on Star Trek. I wanna watch that. I wanna be engaged. So, I have to pay attention. I have to manage the in the house, and I learned a lot of how I wanted to do that during COVID. But this weekend, it really helped me edit and made me progress as much as I did. So, I am about 2/3 done with this chapter. We're gonna do another 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about some of what's coming next for New Devil. All right. So we're wrapping things up. We're getting into the fight, and I'm probably going to be able to finish this chapter by the end of the hour. And then I'm going to take Act Three back downstairs with me while I wait for dinner. Um, so what's going to happen next? This book I hope will be out in September or October, and that's a really tight time frame. It's like super tight because it's already February, and a lot of things have to happen. I believe that Samantha will take about a month to do what is called a developmental edit. And a developmental edit is the primary type of editing done like with first, second drafts when you're still not sure how solid the story is, if you've got the right elements, if you hit the right beats, what's missing from the story. That's what this editor is going to tell me. Where to put in more description, what I might need to describe, it's the development of the story that this editor works on. After she gives me the feedback, most of, I believe, March will be spent with me making those changes. And those changes can take some time. But I'm hoping, because I have this now super tight time frame of September, October, that um, that I will feel the pressure and make things happen. One of the things I'm going to be doing in February and March is seeking out beta readers. The beta readers will be the step that will happen after I've made my edits. And the reason I go to beta readers is because I want feedback from my readers. I want to know what they think. I have a group on Patreon who sometimes they get to read and sometimes they have feedback, but more often than not they don't really have any critical feedback. They tend to tell me if they like things, if they like the direction things are going, etc. uh, but I will have about 2 or 3 beta readers who will read through the entire book, answer some questions, and tell me what they thought. Primarily, how much do you like so and so? Do you what do you understand the stakes? Do you understand what this character wants? Have I communicated what is going on? Because because Patala specifically is a pocket dimension where we go where we die, and thus there is no physical bodies. There's a lot of little nuance. It's almost high fantasy, but it's not entirely, because it is this world in a way, but it is not this world. So it's not high fantasy, not low fantasy, but there needs to be world building and world explanation. And while Samantha's going to give me feedback, I need continued feedback after the beta readers are done, and it's going to be a fast beta read. With the Austen books, I take weeks and weeks and weeks, but this is going to be short. I'm going to make edits based on the feedback they gave me. And from there, it'll go to another round with Samantha. My hope is that I'll make edits in March. April, the beta readers will read it. May, I will make edits from them. June, Samantha will have it. And then July and August, I can spend making the final edits. So, what the second round with Samantha will be what is called line editing. And that's her going through, making sure it reads consistently, that if there's any other little plot holes that need to be filled, or descriptions that need to be done, that'll happen. She will check grammar and spelling and the style that things happen. She'll correct tags. She'll give me a little bit more feedback on the development, but mostly it'll just be the line editing. And from there, I will spend August and July and August making those changes. We got to make those changes. Then a line editor, I'm sorry, then a proofreader or copy editor needs to go through and do a final run through. This is my final draft. This person will need to do the spelling, the grammar, the style, the very end of it. And then I have to format the book. The cover is already done. It has to be adjusted because I made decisions that I have changed. But the cover, it's more like little tweaks have to be done on the actual cover to wording, but the cover is done and I love it. And I will probably redo it when I'm ready to start releasing the entire series, which is fine because um, it should match the whole series. And this book's cover matches what I want for this book and how I want readers to see this book. but when it gets into the entire series, it's gonna need a very different look that matches the rest of it. So there is, some work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. If I have to push this out to October, maybe even November, I can. If Samantha comes back and is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, this needs a ton of work," um, I have a plan for what I might publish this year, and it is another, horror story. Um, we're not gonna talk about that yet. So, New Devil gets put away for at least a month before I pull it back out. I wanted to show everybody this this binder I have of I think one previous session I showed you the disc bound, the arc planner that was for this book. Um and you can see it has the have to open it. Um it has, among other things, the details of the outlines so that I can see what's happening and where I am in the process. Um, that's getting put away for a little while, and we're gonna take a break from fantasy and the devil. But I have to finish this draft. So we're gonna do another 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes of this book for these live streams, and then we'll wrap up with what will be happening in February. All right, I'm gonna start the timer. All right. It is 7:53. That is the last sprint. I finished the chapter. I did some edits on some of the Act 3 chapters. Well, one of the Act 3 chapters, and then um there's 3 chapters in Act 3. One is sort of the uh someone gets fired, well, actually it's 4. Someone gets fired, someone gets hired. The final devil is put into place. And then there is the third version of the ride, which really isn't the ride told the way the other 2 versions of. And again, this is something I'll talk to Samantha about. Does that work, or should I revert back to that second person death talking to the reader as if the reader is on the ride like I did for the other 2 versions, but also have sort of the commentary and discussion around it that happened in the chapter uh, that is as it exists now. But the last 2 chapters, and this I have to think about probably overnight and talk it out to Cedric, basically, just talking to Cedric. One chapter was a holdover from a previous version of this when we were just focused on Joan and what happened to her. I had hummed and hawed in the first draft about um would she take the job or would she not take the job? And in the version where she didn't take the job, she ends she ends up at Subway making subs, even though she has dreams of something better. She just can't get she can't get around herself. She can't get past her own problems. So she's in a terrible position. She's at Subway, and you'll understand it when you read the book. Why this is such a big deal for her, because when you meet her, you understand the position she's in. Um, so Christina and Matthew, Christina, the previous devil, Matthew, the lawyer, who have fallen in love and gotten married. And I might have let that thread drop a little during the writing, but this is not a romance book. It's really not important that they fall in love and get married. I do mention it, but it never really amounts to anything important. Um, so they go and they want to see what's happened to her. Where is she? Things have happened. It's 5 years later. And then there's another chapter called Breaking the Curse, and it addresses the curse that launches us into the entire Enduring series. If if both chapters fit, I think one might end up being like bonus content for the story. Um, see one possible like variation of this, or content that will bring us into the main Enduring series at some point, reconnecting the bulk of the series with this book. It happens around 2001, 2002, so it is well in the future of this book. But it could be an epilogue to set up some of what's happened, um and to make some of the things that happen in the main Enduring series not a surprise, but an expected. Just to who they happen to is the surprise. So, I'm gonna do a quick edit of those, and then I'm gonna ask Samantha if she feels which one, if either, should be included in this book. And if not, if it ends with the third version of the ride, that's great. It opens with the first version of the ride, so ending with it just sort of is a nice bookend. So what's happening moving forward? Next month, we're going to the 21st Century Austen series. Um, Long story short, I am editing Modern Persuasion to enhance the book. There's some things came up in the intervening years between when I published it and today. I'd really like another pass at it. It never had a real editor, and I have learned so much of the editing process, and I am a better writer now than I was when I wrote Modern Persuasion, so I'd like to make it better. That is what we will be doing, and there will be some other things that come up. If I get through that fairly quickly, which is a possibility, it's really just small edits. It's not even this in depth. And I love these characters, and the story is just so easy to work with. I was already 6 chapters in uh when January started. So it's like a 21 chapter book. Um I have little tweaks to make, and you'll be able to see all of that with me because there's no spoilers. The book is out and it's romance, so everybody gets a happily ever after. If I finish that before the end of the month, and while we're still doing live streams, I have a prequel story to write as sort of a reader magnet for newsletters to help people get into the series. It is Frederick's point of view of what leads up to the story. We get so very little of Frederick's point of view. It's one very long chapter in the book, but he has a much more active role in starting the book than Emma realizes. So I want to explore that. And if I get through that before the end of the month, I have what I'm calling Austin Bad Dates that will be bonus content in pre-orders as sort of if you pre-order the book, you'll this is Unraveling Carrie Woodhouse. Looking forward, if you pre-order that book, it might be a Kickstarter giveaway if I do that. That means that you would be able to pick one of my 5 at this point, um, Austen-esque heroes. So Frederick, Will Darcy, um, Adam, or Ethan, and have a very bad date with them because you can't have a good date. You're not there happily ever after. That's the book. So it's going to be a bad date. And Frederick's is almost entirely done. It needs to be edited and cleaned up. And I started mentioning it in Frederick's prequel story. And I was like, well, that's a little bit of fun. So I'll work on that as well. Um, but next month is a 21st Century Austen month. And if there's a lot there to work on, and hopefully March will be a mix of a continuation of 21st Century Austen, but far more focused on Unraveling Carrie Woodhouse, the next book in the series. And then in April, I don't know yet. I haven't gotten that far. There's a lot of things on my plate, including short stories that I want to write. The horror series, I'm really into the fake guru stuff. Some things have happened in the MLM world and in these fake guru scammy things that have just like gotten the wheels turning in my head, which is always a good sign for something to come. I in a moment of um desperation to avoid working on New Devil, I did write a story that I thought was going to be the start of the Guru collection. Um, Turns out it's the end of Bribery, and I might update Bribery with this new chapter once I've edited it and have it be sort of like a special edition, a special extended edition, but also giving away that chapter to people who have already purchased or read the book so that they can get that before at the same time as everybody who's buying the book moving forward. It sort of wraps that up and makes a stronger connection to what happened in Crowlack, which I realized as I avoid everything about New Devil, I had sort of assumed people would read Crowlack, and not they did not necessarily do that. So they might not realize that there's a connection, that there's something here, but also it helped me explain some of what's going forward in this fake guru book. But that is moving forward. I'm just focused on Modern Persuasion next. It's time to update my bullet journals, my planners, and all of my Kanban board details so that the shift happens. With that, I'm going to let you all go for tonight. If you're rewatching this, or if you're watching this live, or you're on the replay, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. I will be doing this again next Sunday um unless something happens, honestly. But watch the notification will probably go to the Romance Chicklet Facebook groups, and but it will be up on Instagram for everybody who is interested in seeing it. And there might be a different group because it's a different audience. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you next week.